Thanks everybody for joining. I really appreciate the opportunity to talk to everybody today about how it's going financially and budget-wise for the church year to date. We'd planned on coming here in the month of May to give an update on where we were and how we were doing, very purposefully, because we thought by this month of May we would know. We would have some good trends behind us to say, are we doing okay, or do we need to be careful about how things are going forward, or be aware of how things are going forward. So this May time period ended up being a real nice time to do that. Let me share my screen. I've just got a few PowerPoint slides to go through, and I'm super happy to take any questions as well as we go along here. Okay, again, I'm Brady Kasper. I'm both the acting treasurer at St. Andrews and the finance committee chair. And I've got a couple of members from the finance committee here on the call as well to help me when I forget or say something not quite right. Hopefully I'll get it right as we go along here. I just wanted to start the May budget update, with kind of some positive signs of hope that we see across our church right at the moment. Some of them having to do strictly with financial items, some of them not. But I thought that this was the right place to start, and really thanks to Scott Lester too for reminding me of some of the God's good graces that are coming forward right now. Even though our church is in this time of COVID and not getting together, there are still so many good things that are happening at St. Andrews right now that we've listed on the screen. We have a full staff, which is something that we haven't had for a number of years, and we're blessed to have Doug now on for 9 months or so, and working with our kids and families, which is something we so desperately need. We're really working through the social justice initiative. I've seen some things at the council meeting and in our newsletters, and I think that there's a lot of good stuff to come out of there. I want to note that benevolence is still really strong. Even though we're all experiencing a little bit of tough times, St. Andrews as a church, through both our current fund contributions and then through our designated pass-throughs, is still contributing to the community really well. And it's really nice to see. And as treasurer, I get to sign all the checks every week for money that goes out to the door for people and groups in need. And it's actually one of the really fun parts of the job is to do that. We just finished worship. We have a continued commitment to worship music and engagement, like forum like this. I know there's other forums that people engage in across our church community, which is really great. And of course, we hosted congregations for the homeless here in the month of March, and really made a difference in the community that way. And I'll note that we basically had donations that covered any of the expenses that the church had. So we didn't spend any of our, we'll say, core church funds on congregations for the homeless. It really just came from individual contributions, which was pretty fantastic. So my little tagline there says, hey, there's a lot of hope now, and there's a lot of hope for the future, especially as vaccines become more prevalent and we all get vaccinated and start coming back together in person. I see a lot of hope for the future. And just a note too, my wife and I both got our second dose this morning. We were able to make it home 15 minutes before service started. So that was a real blessing to be able to do that today. A day of celebration for sure. Starting with the signs of hope, as we are through April now, and we've had a little bit of a struggle. Through January, February, and March, we actually did fairly well financially. We were a bit behind on where we were budget-wise, and a bit behind where we were last year, just a few $1,000s. But it wasn't really causing any concern for myself or the finance committee. And then we had the month of April, and the month of April was particularly, there was a particular gap between our income and level and expense level in the month of April, which has really driven where we are now. So just as the chart says here, income-wise for our current fund this year, we've had $226,000 of income, which when you think about it, we have no in-person services, and to some extent we are a little bit disconnected. To still have $226,000 of income coming into the church is actually really fantastic. Not super disappointed with that number. We do have, though, $261,000 of expenses. We are under budget on our expenses for the year by a number of thousands of dollars, as we tend to be in any year. But we do have a decent sized gap now between income and expenses of $35,000 year to date. It's very normal at this time of year for us to have a gap between income and expenses, and usually we make that gap up in December. But this gap is a little bit larger than normal. I would expect to be maybe $10,000 to $15,000, maybe $20,000 gap between income and expenses. So we do, especially with the month of April, where we had a $17,000 gap just in the single month. It caused us a little bit of concern, not super concerned, but a little bit of concern as we go forward. I'm going to talk about a few other things in the succeeding charts here that talk about basically how we still have a healthy church financially, and things that we can do as we go throughout the rest of the year. As treasurer and as finance committee chair, one of the things I keep a very close eye on is what is our current cash balance at the church. We want to make sure that we have at least 3 to 4 months of expenses in our savings account on a monthly basis or on an ongoing basis. And the good news is we do. We have $270,000 in our bank account and in some other funds that we keep for the church, other savings accounts. So we're still healthy from a cash position. We have no immediate risk whatsoever. And at the note there says that we began the year with a cash balance of $294,000. And it is normal for that cash balance to decline throughout the year and then recover in the month of December. So my tagline there is cash balance remains strong, but is declining a bit faster than I would like to see. I want to touch briefly on the Paycheck Protection Program, or PPP loan. As most of you know, we did obtain a PPP loan for $66,000 in 2020. As we've gone through the process now of figuring out whether we qualify for forgiveness of the loan or don't qualify, the good news is we fully qualify for forgiveness of the loan. And myself and Russ Stark, our accounting assistant, are working through the process of forgiveness right now. Anticipate that being completed most likely by the middle of June, and we'll no longer have any obligation to repay that loan, which is really a great thing. I will note, though, last time I spoke to you was during the budget meeting in January. We were looking into whether we qualified for the 2020 Paycheck Protection Program loan, and we do not qualify for the 2021 Paycheck Protection Loan Program. The basic qualifications there is that you had to have a 25% drop in income between 2019 and 2020 to qualify, and our income drop was more like 8 or 9%. So we just didn't qualify for the basic requirements of the loan. But the good news is that the 2020 loan has really bolstered our cash balance. It did what it was supposed to do, which was to keep our staff fully employed. And even if we've had a bit of a revenue shortfall, we haven't had to make any reductions in that critical area, so we can continue to serve our faith community as we expect. I've just gone through a number of quite a bit of information there. I'll pause for just a moment and see if anybody has any questions so far. This is my last slide in the deck, actually. Just the path forward here. Our church has been very blessed over all the years that all of us have been here. I know my wife and I are coming up on 15 years at St. Andrews. It's easy to remember because my wife was pregnant with our middle child when we joined, and he's coming up on his 15th birthday here in the month of September. It's just been a blessing to be part of the church, and God has blessed our church with so much. We tend to find that as we go through these times, and we've been here before, that we find a way through any of our financial challenges that we have, and I'm super confident that we'll do that again. One of the signs of hope for sure is a return to in-person worship and fellowship. Hopefully as we get through this summer season and into the fall, we'll have opportunities to do that. And I think that'll be a positive for our financial situation. And then we're just going to be continually vigilant. Our staff is absolutely wonderful at making really great financial decisions, making adjustments as we go throughout the year. I've seen it year in and year out. From all the folks that are responsible and are caretakers of our money that we utilize for the church. And then my committee, does a fantastic job every month of, really combing through the financials of the church, looking for any opportunities to save money or bring additional funds in, as well as just making sure that every single penny that we are either bringing in or expended is accounted for exactly properly. So we'll continue to do all those things. And I just want to note at the bottom there, the signs of hope are all around. It's springtime, it's Mother's Day, lots of really positive things happening going forward. So in summary, just a little bit of cause for concern on the finance side. Definitely not time for panic, but something for awareness. As we go forward, I'm going to make sure that everybody's updated in the trendings, emails, and in our monthly newsletter as well with a good financial update, so everybody can see real clearly how it's going. All right, that's really the end of my formal comments. I'm happy to take any questions that anybody might have. We did not budget for a 2021 PPP loan on purpose. We knew that we may not qualify, and we did not, when we set the budget for the year, we did not count on that money. It was basically going to be a bonus for this year. Good. What we did count on was that we were going to get forgiveness of the 2020 loan, and that we were going to be able to, if we needed to, offset any difference between the 2021 income and expenses with the 2020 loan that we got. Yeah, it is included in the cash balance right now. It's money in our bank account, and so all dollars that we have in our bank account, we account in that cash balance. Okay. And what I've also observed over the course of time, especially if I'm able to give good visibility of what's happening, is people give to need, and if folks think that everything is balanced, they'll continue with maybe the normal giving or a little less. If there's a clear need at the church, some people usually step up to giving. So I think. I'm really confident that we're going to be in good shape. I'm also confident that if we fall a little bit short, we've built up reserves over the course of time through the PPP loan and just normal reserves that we'll be able to weather this year and set ourselves up well for next year as well.
So let me make a couple of comments, Brady, if you wouldn't mind, while
Sure.
People are thinking if they've got some last minute questions. First of all, I'd like to thank you, Brady, on behalf of the congregation for your financial update. It's really helpful. And I also want to assure those who are on this call who are not on the council that the executive committee, as well as the council, is working and listening quite closely to Brady make updates each month And I also want to assure you that we are all very confident in a very competent finance committee that we're blessed to have. I also want to thank and acknowledge that Brady has assumed the treasurer responsibilities as of the first part of November and has been putting in quite a yeoman's effort in terms of the financing, going through the budgeting process, and then dealing with the effects that the pandemic has had. So Brady, thank you very much, and thank you to the full finance committee for all that you have all done. John, the floor is yours.
It's mine. Well, you're just gonna have to look at my mug because I don't have any attachments to bring up. I'm just gonna kind of talk about tiny houses, but I'm going to try to, as much as possible, refer to them as tiny homes, because for the residents, this is it is their home. And when Kurt and Dick and Doug and I went and toured Sound Foundations, Barb, who gave us the tour, made a point of saying we're building their homes. So that's what I'm going to try to do. First of all, I thought I'd be trying to recruit some people to volunteer when we go to Sound Foundations on June 5th, but we have a full group of volunteers. We've got our 12 already, yes. So
and 3 on the waiting list already.
That's good in case someone, at the last minute isn't able to go. And I was going to say, I'm going to mention for those who still would like to volunteer, I'll talk a little bit about there's some other opportunities for you to volunteer to help in the process of building a tiny home. So just to give some background on the tiny homes, I really wasn't familiar with them when Ron first suggested it in one of our fall building and property meetings. And so, when I started to research it, I realized that building a tiny home really fits in with one of our outreach core values. We're heavily involved in congregations for the homeless and Imagine Housing, and building the tiny homes really it provides transitional housing for those people that are maybe going from living in a tent or living under a bridge to having a place to stay before they can go on to more permanent housing. So, so the transitional, the tiny homes, they're 8 by 12, 8 feet by 12 feet. And what's neat about them is compared to living in a tent, they're dry, you keep warm, you'll have heat, and you're safe and they're secure. They have a locking door, which you certainly don't have if you're living in a tent, and you have protection for your belongings. I know when I looked online at the Sound Foundation site, one of the women mentioned that, by living in a tiny home in one of the tiny home villages, that she didn't have to worry about somebody stealing her blankets and then being cold at night. So it's pretty basic needs that it provides. So the tiny homes, you get electricity, there's an overhead light, there's a heater, that's all included with the tiny home. The building materials actually come from Lowe's, the Low Income Housing Institute, which kind of oversees the whole tiny village programs. They provide the building materials for low income housing. So the Low Income Housing Institute that oversees the tiny villages, there's usually about 40 tiny homes in a particular village. And in that village will be restroom facilities, There's a shower facilities, on-site laundry, and a kitchen area for all the residents to use. And then there's also a case manager that the residents can work with. So one of the things I saw online, which really makes sense, is the tiny villages provide a sense of community for all those residents, and a way to allow the residents to reclaim their dignity. So there's currently, I think, 8 tiny villages in the Seattle area. There's another 3 in Tacoma and 1 in Olympia, and there's more tiny villages that are planned to be established and tiny homes built in the future. One of the things that makes the tiny villages not unique but special is because on the Sound Foundation's website, they said that none of the residents have contracted COVID compared to people that are living in emergency shelters. There's been at least 440 people over time that have contracted COVID. And then normally the residents in a tiny home village, there'll be like 2 residents that will live in a tiny home over a year. And in about 52% of the time, those residents will move into more long-term housing. And 36% of those will be in permanent housing. So, and those are better statistics than what you will find for someone that's been living in an emergency shelter. So, any questions so far? Some of this I might be repeating to the choir, but anyway. No. It could be like, I think the last one I saw is the tiny home village that opened up was in the University District. So it could be, I know there's one that's proposed that's planned for up in Bellingham. So it could be there. The Low-Income Housing Institute decides where they're going to go, where their need, because they oversee the whole program.
Okay.
Do you know if there are any planned for the east side?
I don't know. When I looked at the site for the Low-Income Housing Institute, there was none listed on the east side. And I don't, I was thinking, well, why is that? Is that because, like in Seattle where they're currently allowing homeless people to live in tents on the streets? On the east side, like in Bellevue, that's not allowed. You do see, occasionally you might see somebody in a tent that's somewhere out in the woods, but yeah, I don't know the answer to that.
I think the answer is primarily about permitting and city support for this. So Seattle has updated their processes to be able to permit and build a tiny home village on some land there, and none of the east side cities have yet, to the best of my knowledge.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, and of course that's part of I think the cost too is, finding the land and putting in all the utilities and having those working. What I was going to say about Sound Foundations Northwest, where we're going to be volunteering on June 5th, they entered into a partnership with the Low-Income Housing Institute to be able to do this in this warehouse. The warehouse building is actually owned by the Port of Seattle, and I think it's for a very low rental or lease fee, have loaned it to the Low-Income Housing Institute, who gets the building materials that are stored there at the building. And then Sound Foundations Northwest organizes and oversees the volunteers for building the tiny homes. And they've set it up. There was an architect that helped design this whole assembly line process. So there's like 5 different workstations. And so there's team leaders there that are each of the workstations to help guide you through the process. There's no, you don't have to have any special skills. You can just show up and volunteer there, and they'll help you to show you how to use the tools. And usually there's like, during a week, there'll be 4 tiny homes that are in the process of being built. And 2 of them will be completed usually in a week. Let's see. The tools are provided, so you don't have to bring any tools. You just have to dress appropriately. And everybody's masked. And now with everybody, used to be, if you were going to volunteer there, you had to be kind of self-quarantine yourself for 14 days. But now, once you've been vaccinated, that's no longer a requirement. And Sound Foundations, in looking at their website, they consider it their 4 pillars. They build tiny homes. They want to build a sense of community, because people that volunteer have it's a community of caring people. So you'll meet other people that have the same passion as you do about reducing homelessness. And then the idea is you want to have fun. And so one of the neat things that Barb, the tour guide, talked about is as people are working on the homes and maybe putting up the siding on the inside, they'll write kind of little notes to whoever's going to reside, be the resident there, maybe love notes or just something. And Barb had said that some of the residents, they say they can feel those expressions of love from the people who built the tiny homes. So it's kind of neat, even though they eventually, those, whatever they write gets covered up, they still have that feeling. So the other thing is we're volunteering as a group on June 5th, but for somebody who's still interested in volunteering, you don't have to be part of a group. You could just go online and send an email to Sound Foundations and say, well, I'd like to volunteer in 2 weeks on it during the week. I'll pick a day, and you could go individually, or just a couple of you can show up, and then you can just volunteer there for the day or half a day, whatever works for you. They're just very welcoming. They're very appreciative of whoever can come in and help. And again, they're open. They're open every day of the week except Friday. That's the one day they take off. And if, the cost of the building materials at Sound Foundations is around $3,800. So though we're just going to go there and volunteer, if you're interested in donating some money towards the cost of the building materials, you can either talk to Russ Stark, and he's got a line item set up for tiny houses or tiny homes that you could send money to, or you can just go online to the Sound Foundations Northwest website and donate directly to them. So any questions on that?
So may I make a comment? I actually talked with a representative from Lehigh on Thursday, and the building materials cost is actually going down for them, which is great.
Wow.
The cost of lumber and everything is going down after the pandemic rush to renovate.
Really?
So now the number I was given on Thursday with $3,000 per tiny house for raw materials, which is great, which means that their dollar goes farther now.
Right.
And also, one of the things that they talked about was a need for other donations. So outside of just that's a lot of money per house still, $3,000, but they also need things like bedding and materials and other things to help fill the homes. So if you were looking for other ways to help support them, I would reach out to the Low Income Housing Institute and see what sort of specific donations they need. They often do welcome baskets. They often do other things as well to help support these people when they come into these homes, because some of them come with nothing but the clothes on their back.
I know, and looking online too, it says they have at the tiny villages, they're at their welcoming building, they have areas where you can donate food or clothing, like Doug mentioned. So you could take things, and like you said, you could, if you were really interested in doing that, you could probably check in to find maybe what one of the tiny villages, what they might specifically need. And now, which brings me to the item, one of the ways you might be able to volunteer is our youth group through Doug is planning to build a tiny home on St. Andrew's property, probably out in the parking lot near the emergency shed, the week of July 26th through the 30th. So the building materials will be, as I understand it from when I was communicating with Low-Income Housing Institute several months ago, was they'll deliver the kit of all the building materials along with the instructions of how you build it. And I know that the youth group has already raised more than enough money to cover the cost of the building materials through the Easter breakfast, virtual breakfast. But they are interested in having some of us adults, those with building skills, to come help and assist with the process that week. So that would be really a great way to help. And then you'd be starting from scratch on building a tiny home. And that way you can, connect with some of the youth and have fun. And I'm sure there'll probably be some pizza there during that week, right, Doug?
Yeah. So pretty soon here, we're going to be doing some signups online on the website for people to sign up for the summer. And if you want to sign up as an adult to help out, that'd be a great place to be there. Or you can reach out to me directly to ask questions and things. We are, like I said, I talked with a representative from the Low-Income Housing Institute on Thursday, and part of that was to get coordinated the schedule so we can make sure our building materials are there and everything, have all the pieces we need for tools that would be necessary, because they don't provide the tools. We have to provide our own tools. So if you want to help or if you have some extra tools that may be needed, we'll have a list of those on the website as well that we will need. So things like air compressors and nail guns and, obviously hammers and screwdrivers and things like that. We'll have those up on the website as well, so that we can have everything we need for that build. And if we have the right crew with the right knowledge base, we should be able to get it done that week, and then it'll be picked up and it ships to the next tiny village that needs another tiny home. So, but we're going to take all youth and any adults that want to help out with this. We'll figure out ways to get everybody involved, whether it's building projects or we're going to be, I'm in conversations with the Low-Income Housing Institute as to other supplemental projects we could do that week as well. So that'll be coming up very soon.
I was thinking later on, because I know the CDC is talking about lowering the age for getting the vaccine. So maybe at some point, because it used to be at Sound Foundations, they love to have younger kids, 12 through 18, 17, 18 come and participate, because Barb said they provide a lot of energy and it was great. But with COVID, the Sound Foundations Board decided they just couldn't risk having the younger people contract the virus. But maybe later on, I'm sure, the need's going to go on, not just this year. So there might be another opportunity when later on when the youth could go down in some fashion or other and participate for the day at Sound Foundations. Because it's an amazing facility they have down there. It's just so very well organized. And, one day you might go down and be helping cut the boards, or you might be down there and doing caulking for the day or part of the day, or doing painting. So there's a lot of different ways you can help during the day. So, any questions? Well, you would, I think especially for the youth group that will be building it from scratch, you'll be able to name the tiny home, give it a name. When we were at Sound Foundations for the tour, Barb said, if you sponsor a tiny home, you get to pick a name for it. Mm-hmm. So it could be called St. Andrews or Andrews Home, or whatever you want to call it. So that's just another way you can personalize the building of the tiny home. Yeah. But yeah, anybody that's got kind of carpentry skills, any kind of building skills, well, that would be a big help if they're able to participate or volunteer during that week to help the youth. That'd be really good. So.
When I talked with the Low-Income Housing Institute, they were saying that, with really skilled, dedicated carpenters and, people with a lot of construction experience, they can get it done in a weekend. And some people take as long as 6 weeks. They just want, they just ask that you make sure things are secure while you're working on it. Because obviously things can disappear, but, we can definitely figure out the best schedule of things so that we can get as many people involved as possible.
Yeah. Good.
Yes, of course. And of course, as with all of our youth mission projects, safety is number one concern, first and foremost.
Yes.
Okay, John, I'd like to thank you for the update on the project. Sounds like really an exciting project, and glad that Doug and the youth are thinking of tagging on to that later on. And Brady, again, thank you for the update on the finance, and thank you all for your participation. And I wish you all a great day, and again, a happy Mother's Day.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful week.